Mike's my favorite mystery in
Yeah.
Twin Peaks.
Why do Bob and Leland look different and Mike and Gerard not look different? Is the majority of Twin Peaks sort of conjured in the mind or psyche in some way, or subconscious or unconscious of somebody who's been traumatized in the real world? Do you believe that they experienced a series of traumatic events that were similar to Laura Palmer's experience? And do you think this person sort of looks almost exactly like Laura Palmer? Tommy Jones, talking with Anthony. Here we are, man. I'm calling you to sneak one in real quick because I wanted to congratulate you. You have put out a new video, and it's very compelling. I was smiling and laughing and thinking throughout the whole thing. And I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about it. And
Shoot.
the video is called Who is Mike? Question number one, how much work? I mean, how long did that take? Because that's a lot of work to do all that editing.
So, as we discussed last time, I'm a songwriter and producer, and that domain is cool. I can navigate that domain, right? I've been doing that for a long time. This this is a different world. So you cut to me, right? If I had hair to pull out, I'd have pulled it all out. You cut to me
Okay.
like for 4 days worth of editing down clips, um, to make what's a 4.5 minute video, right? But to watch me do it, you would have assumed that I was creating a lecture series, which is not at all what I'm doing. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that you said that you laughed because in some ways I'm sort of it sort of works as a test, right? It's like it's a shorter video and it says, is there room for jokes in our in what we like to listen to? Is there, because that's sort of the flavor of the podcast, which I've already crowbarred into our conversation, right? See,
Hmm.
that's plugging 101 right there, man. Like,
Yeah,
I don't even have the podcast out yet, but I've plugged it within the first minute of
that's
this
right.
this video. Um, for Dreamer's Diary, the information's so dense. I want it to be playful too, right? Like I don't want to be boggled down with like, here's our Jungian understanding of this, that, and it has to be playful because sometimes the show is just playful. It has to follow that stuff. So that the video, the 4.5 minute video, it's asking wild questions about Mike because it's Mike's my favorite mystery in
Yeah.
Twin Peaks because I have no idea what it means. And let's not misinform your audience. There's nothing to be learned by watching that video. You know what I mean? I didn't learn anything during the making of that video. I got more confused.
All right. Well, that's learning something. Yeah. That's my method of learning, like asking 100 questions and feeling feeling more lost in the end. But you've gotten somewhere by feeling lost. No, but there are some good questions that you ask, including a question about a piece of punctuation, a comma that I enjoyed. Um, but what do you
This was
basically
well,
give us a 30-second sort of summary of the video or what you're trying to do in the video.
oh my god, the TP grammar favorite game. Can you make all of this make sense in 30 seconds?
I do that with my students, and they're used to it by now. No one ever keeps within 30 seconds, so it's okay.
They're not used to it. They're all talking bad. As soon as you walk, as soon as you turn around, they're like this guy with his 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Because we are familiar with the face of Bob, the question of the real face of Mike seems to elude us. There are some people that can take the interpretation that the real face of Mike is the arm. I think that we're told otherwise than that, or that the arm and Philip Gerard together somehow make the face of Mike. But we're never specifically told that. Whereas you're told specifically what the face of Bob is. So you understand Bob is to Leland as Mike is to Gerard, but what's the real face of that? What is Mike? What does that look like? And where does that come from? And that question starts to, the minute you start to hunt down the answer to that question, boy, you are on a road of nothing but questions, which are fun. they're really fun questions. Then for
Hmm.
that reason, it's my favorite mystery because that mystery is the mystery that was never quote unquote solved by any network or no one ever intervened to force the hand of that mystery. So you don't know why Philip Gerard is in the Red Room in the Return. That doesn't make any sense. Why is he credited as Philip Gerard? That makes no sense, right? That's that is at the root of that video. That's why it's playful because there is no real solid answer. There's the answer that you like best.
Yeah, but a lot of unexpected questions are raised, and it's 4 minutes, so I would encourage anybody to check it out. And it's got a lot of style, and I found myself, like I said, feeling good watching it. Excuse me one sec. Let me just.
My plan was to create video essays because I love all of the video essay guys. I really like their work, right? I learned the hard way. I don't know if that's the route for me or not. It took me forever to create 5 minutes. I don't know what they're doing to streamline that process and make
Hmm.
material so quickly, unless they're just not. It's hard work. You got to respect anybody who's going out of their way to create really great material like that because it is
Yeah,
extremely difficult work, right? And mine is pedestrian at best, but even then, it's extremely hard work.
it's hard work. It's tedious. I find it meditative and tedious at the same time. Although I don't really have a lot of editing skills, but still, even just the little things that I do with my limited skill set, it's a lot of work. It's time consuming. There's arguably zero reason to do it aside from enjoying it. And that's why I was really appreciative, when you had some nice feedback because it's it's not smart for me to do this with with my life. No, but I like spending time by myself sometimes, engaged in tasks like these, and I enjoyed watching the show with my wife. We did one run through it, and then all the other times I watch it is pretty much alone. I just want to say, and I said it 3 times, but I want to say it again in case anybody ends up watching what we're talking about right now. This stuff is like a lot of work. Nobody owes anybody any attention. But I would like to say that if anybody could support what you're doing, um, give it a shot because
That's great of you to say.
I've talked to you, like off camera and texted you a lot and whatnot, and you have so many great ideas, and it's so interesting where I think you might end up going, and but also it's just so much work. So if anybody, even if it's just a pity watch, people should give you like
Oh, I'll take a pity watch. I don't.
pity attention.
I got all the time in the world for a pity watch. I got no
Yeah,
problem with that whatsoever.
the whole like Mike and Bobby friends in Twin Peaks, and then Mike and Bob, like that's
Mm,
absolutely there's zero chance that that's random. Like that's not a
no, no,
coincidence.
no, no.
So
And again, to me, that when people look for an
maybe a one
answer,
percent, but
when people look for an answer of that, is there truly an answer to the narrative as to why that's true? There may or may not be something very specific about that, but it does operate like dream logic. I mean, in dream logic, you're in your room and it's not your room. And then you turn the corner, then you're back in your room, and it's another room than it was the first time, right? So all of
hmm.
these echoes that seem to speak to one another, they have their own their own logic. So when you see something that's so put upon you, hey, look, these two guys have the same names and are the echo of those two guys, yet there's no relationship whatsoever. And you're supposed to understand there's no relationship. And the relationship is there is no relationship, right? And
Hmm.
it's like that sort of non applicable logic is there on purpose. You're supposed to realize, I believe, you're supposed to realize there's a point of the randomness. The randomness itself is not that random if you look at it as the concoction of a cognitive fugue, right? Then you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's exactly what you would do. You'd use this name over and over again, and you'd attribute it to these people with less than stellar personal traits. And yeah, you know,
Say that
uh,
last sentence again, but differently.
you would, in a dream, you'd associate things um, with similar connotations that aren't necessarily the same, but they do operate in similar ways. So, whereas to Mike and Bobby, the teenagers, aren't the best people on earth, There's Mike in capitals and Bob in capitals, and we know that that's
Yeah.
the same. No, they're not related. But Mike and Bobby, the teenagers, they're not good library kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I don't want to give too much of John Thorne's new book away, but there's a fair amount of that line of thinking in there as well. Like with the
well,
cops. Like the cops might not necessarily be from the dreamer's real world, but well, I don't want to say too much, but the dreamer knows that like kind of cops are out there. So
you
they might have
know
been conjured, perhaps.
that's John and I. We briefly spoke about actually on that video. We talked back and forth just a little bit. Was where we first spoke. We talked about Mulholland Drive because it lays out in a linear fashion, because you're comfortable with the idea, okay, what I just saw, that's not the real story. This thing is because Mulholland Drive lays itself out like that. It's almost an excellent way to view most of Lynch's media,
Hmm.
right? You can kind of take that and then lay it over other things because for me, my interpretation of Lynch's work is it's a lifetime of analyzing cognitive fugue from different perspectives, right? Sometimes he'll show you the perspective of the person who's having the cognitive fugue and you can see it. Other times you're in that perspective with the person having the cognitive fugue and you're seeing what that looks like. I think that's an excellent representation of, because that film particularly, it views it from most angles, right? It views it from within inside of the dream, the fugue, the dissonance, whatever, and then it views it from without. You get to see both of those things. I think if you view Twin Peaks like that, and not just the return, I mean from the very beginning, I think that that's when things start to line up fairly well, right? Dreamer's Diary, it's interesting because like I wanted to launch the podcast because I found a hook for the show, and it wasn't my theory. The hook for the show is I don't have all this theory completely 100% laid out yet.
Hmm.
Let's all talk about it at the same time, right? So when we talk about, well, what's up with Catherine? Why is that there? If my theory is correct, why would that be there, right? It's that kind of thing. Like let's all, I'll get feedback from other folks. If I love it, I'll shout them out by name on the show and say, so and so said this. This is great. This is why it tracks, right? I thought it might be interesting to sort of work a theory through in real time, right? Look, that's the joy of the whole damn thing, right? If you crack the code, you don't ever want that day. I don't ever want that day. You don't ever want that day. None of us really want that day. You don't want that. You don't want to be sitting in, you don't want to be walking through an airport somewhere, run into Mark Frost and go like,
Yeah.
yeah, but what's it really about? And then he takes you aside and he goes, all right, I tell you. You know what I mean? You don't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then it's all
Listen, if
over.
you were if you had a little elevator ride with him, the 30-second elevator ride, and you were able to ask one question, maybe two, to Mark Frost that you thought you had a good, maybe he was, I don't know if he drinks or not. Maybe he's a little tipsy and a little loose. Got any ideas?
Absolutely, I do. I would ask this, and this is exactly how I would phrase it, by the way. And it's ironic that we're talking about the video that I just made. This is absolutely what I would say. I'd say, have we seen the face of Mike? That's exactly what I would say. And it's a yes or no question. It's designed to not give me too much information. I don't want it. I don't want all that information,
Hmm.
right? I don't even know if I want that information, right? But I would, that's the question I would ask. Have we seen the face of Mike, right? And he could say yes or he could say no in either way, because sometimes we hear these splinters of information that is just bewildering. Like David Lynch saying, "You've never seen the White and Black Lodge." Like that's a bewildering, just a throwaway line. Well, I've never shown you the Black and White Lodge. Okay, and that reframes everything the way that you think about it, right? Now I'm
Yeah,
very
whether it's
careful to
whether it's
make
true or not. Yep.
right. I'm very careful to make the distinction now when I talk about the waiting room, that it is in fact a waiting room. That now he's gone back and forth on it. The scripts go back and forth on what they call it, right?
Do you think do you
But
think
at
the
this,
wait do you think the waiter You know, the waiter, Hank Gordon. Do you think
Yeah.
he's related to the wait, like that's a play on the waiting room in any way, or is it just random
No,
coincidence?
no, I don't. Well, I don't think it's a. No, it's not a random coincidence. I think waiting itself has a lot to do with it, right? The idea of waiting. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that he's a servant to the ethereal nature of reality itself, right? Just like the giant, right? So the giant is almost dressed as sort of a before we see him as the fireman. If in fact that's the same thing, people can get into
Hmm.
knockdown dragouts about that as well, right? Because look, they distinguish the names, right? Um, I happen to believe that that is one and the same, if you will, right? But I think that there's some sort of like servitude that's happening to the nature of what that reality is, and so you see a lot of them dressed up like that. They're dressed up, you know. The man from another place is dressed up, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I think more important than whether or not the waiter,
He's a waiter who makes you wait. I know that much.
yeah, I think that the waiter, it has more to do with servitude than anything else. I saw it proposed before that uh, there's a possibility that he is in making Cooper wait in that frustrating environment. I can't remember who proposed this, but it's a really interesting concept. They're almost testing his nature. Will you be rude? Right? Clearly you're in need of medical support immediately, and this guy he's being very kind, but he's not being
Yeah.
helpful.
Or
And like so, Cooper's reaction would then cause the very next thing to happen. Either they can be extremely helpful to the overall theme of the show or not, right? And because Cooper is kind to him, it goes the way that it goes,
yeah,
right?
it's interesting. I was listening to Diane podcast and about that episode not too long ago because that episode is on my mind, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool. They had one of the guys was saying, you know, that waiter, he's a little bit sinister, perhaps, because all the all these mannerisms that he's going through, he is letting the guy sort of bleed out on the floor. But then there was a rebuttal, and it was an interesting exchange. I would I would recommend that episode. All right, sorry for that. I'm like figuring out all kinds of new things with a new computer I got. What else do you want to say about the new video? If anything, because I know you've said a little bit.
Well, more than that, the folks that I got a lot of enjoyment out of watching their programs, um, or reading their books, or trying on their theories, their various blogs and essays, those people are, yourself included, better people than they are entertainers, and I've got nothing but entertainment out of all of that. I don't know if it's surprising or not, given the nature of like the community and how it's a lot of hard work to like create media that's associated to media, right? And we're all doing it because like, you just like it so much, you go, oh, what about this idea, right? And it takes forever to like put that idea into the air, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing it because you want to touch base with other people who love this thing so passionately like you do, right? So
And it's
it's
also
it's
like a little bit of a form of gratitude because you've enjoyed so much, as a reader or listener or watcher that it's like if you could put something else out there that somebody might enjoy, it's like,
yeah, so I guess it's
reciprocity.
it's not surprising given the nature of all of that, but everybody has been like just super kind, super um not just kind, but encouraging and gone like, your ideas, put them out there, man, do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's been that kind of thing, right? Um, it's one of those things where you look forward to the the festivals and the get-togethers and the stuff that we all do, the panels and the what have you. You know what I mean? It's so far it's been a great experience, right? It's not the dystopian thing in your mind that can happen where you forward a concept and everybody goes, "What the hell are you talking?" Go back in your, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's been the most rewarding part about it is talking with people you really respect,
Cool.
and they're going, maybe it could be that. What if it were this? And you're just people talking through this thing you love so much, right?
Yeah, I do. Why do Bob and Leland look different and Mike and Gerard not look different? I know it's so basic and like
It,
elementary,
it really
but
is.
they're not
But it
parallel.
really is. If Bob's in the red room, you know you're looking at Bob, right? Likewise, when you run into Leland, you know you're looking at Leland. You can take it on face value that that's really Leland or however, but you know who you're looking at. When Mike is in the red room, who are you looking at? Is it Philip Gerard? Do you know? Right? And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you have this clear distinction. When you see Bob, it cuts to Bob. Every time it cuts to Bob, you know you're looking at Bob, right?
Quick two questions before I go. And I know you said you like the slowed down questions that could be chewed on, but these are going to be quick. Um,
Or of course.
is the majority of Twin Peaks um, sort of conjured in the mind or psyche in some way, or subconscious or unconscious of somebody who's been traumatized in the real world? Yes, no, or sort of.
It's absolutely taking place in the personal unconscious of a person experiencing cognitive dissonance, as far as my reading is concerned. It
And
seems to track.
question two is did they do you believe that they experienced a series of traumatic events that were similar to Laura Palmer's experience?
Yes, I believe that sometimes you're seeing people from the dreamer's real life. Sometimes you're seeing events from the dreamer's real life. And sometimes you're seeing places slash things from the dreamer's real life. And then I think that sometimes it's just a concoction of a lot of other things, media and thoughts and free form concepts. But yeah, I think that absolutely. I think that the trauma itself, Laura's the one, right? I think that the reason the trauma itself is a direct parallel.
I'm going to sneak a third in. And
Okay.
and do you think this person sort of looks almost exactly like Laura Palmer?
Yes. And I think that has to do with the ambiguous nature of you know, are you Laura? Well, I feel like I know her. Yeah, I think exactly that. I think it's a person who subconsciously thinks to themselves, I'm like that. I'm I am that. I'm not that, but I am that. I feel
Mm.
related to this, right? I think, I mean, that seems to be a good reason why she feels disassociated to herself in that space in between worlds, right? Where it's like, she's my cousin. I feel like I know her, and then ultimately what we hear in the return, which is, well, yes, it is me, and I'm dead and alive, right? It's always
Mm.
this strange, ambiguous nature. But to answer your question, yeah, I believe that the dreamer looks and is not exactly like Laura Palmer. I think they look the same, but I think, for all intents and purposes, Laura Palmer is her, if we were to say it like in a Freudian way, it could be her ego, right? It's a perfect representation of her ego. If it had a name, it would be Laura Palmer, right? The ego, right? But I don't think that it's the self, right? I don't think that it's the total encapsulation of who the dreamer is as a human being.
Thank you, sir.
Whew.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. And I'm trying not to get in trouble with my personal life. Um, nice to see you. If anybody wanted
I
to
just got a
contact,
text message that said time to eat. That text
yeah,
message came from about 10 feet that direction right there. That means don't play around. Just
totally.
don't play around.
If somebody wanted to like find your stuff or contact you, what would you recommend?
Dreamer's Diary podcast is the YouTube. We're going to be uploading the Dreamer's Diary podcast, the Twin Peaks podcast that we're doing direct to that and all available podcast outlets. And then short form essays and stuff like that, and just a lot of
Cool.
content will be going up there. So yeah, absolutely. That's where they can find us.
Good night and thank you. And we'll keep in touch. Yeah. Enjoy your dinner.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Later.